There is so much more to buttons than meets the eye, whether they're coming in different sizes or shapes or colours or designs or prints or how many holes they have in them. There's just so many options. But then my favourite kind of button is the cover button. I really love what it brings to a project, so I thought I'd show you how they're done. Now, if you've not come across cover buttons, the concept being that they come blank and you can cover them with whatever fabric it is you're after. Some people like to embroider a design on, or specifically choose a fabric with a design on so that you can place that on front and centre. And they really do make the most wonderful feature piece to a garment. I have done quite a few coats over the years where I use the same fabric as the coat for the button. It just looks so smart. So, but cover buttons, there's a lot of people who sort of get a bit daunted by them and a bit sort of like, oh, I'm not entirely sure how to do it or what to do. So these are two different types of cover buttons. As well as being a totally different size, they work in two totally different ways. Both are available on the market as different ways of doing them, so I will show you how each of them work. We shall start with these ones because I think they are the easiest. So first rule of cover button is you're going to need a piece of interfacing. Unless you're dealing in a really thick, dense fabric, generally speaking, I find that the weave is such on a lot of fabrics where this metal is going to shine through and you're going to get a slight sheen, which just doesn't look as good as I think it can. By putting in a piece of interfacing, it's just going to stop that from happening. So first things first, we need to draw a circle. Now, quite a lot of the packets, this one included, will come with a template. I don't know if you can see it here, so that it gives you a template of the piece that you need to cut on it. So I have cut myself a circle sort of ish shape of the fabric and the same from a piece of interfacing. I'm going to place the two together and use them as one thing. This button then will sit in the centre and it's got all of these little metal spikes around the outside. The idea being that they are going to grip the fabric. So you're going to work your way around. I like to do one side and then the other. And you can see, hopefully, that these little spikes are coming through and gripping the fabric in place. And you're trying to do it in such a way that you don't end up with any pleats or anything on top of the button. You may get a few, it's going to depend entirely on the size of the button and how thick the fabric is. But generally speaking, you can push most of them out and under. Let's keep working my way around until I am all the way around the circle. I get quite fussy with it. If it's a particularly thick fabric, you can cut your circle of interfacing so that it's just going to be the size of this and then hold it in place so that the only bit that's hitting these grippy sections is the fabric itself. But that looks pretty good. And then the back comes in, slots over this and pushes into place. You heard it snap. And there you have it. As a cover button, really nice and quick and simple. This is quite a large one, but they come in lots of different sizes. You can get different depths of them. Some are slightly more mushroomed. There really is quite a lot of different varieties on the market, but it's a really nice simple one and it's so effective with the fabric. And you can see with the interfacing there, I'm not getting any sheen, any sense of the metal coming through at all. It's a really great little tip. Sometimes people like them slightly padded. There is absolutely no reason why you can't, instead of interfacing, use a very thin layer of wadding. So these cover buttons work in a similar but slightly different way. So you may be able to see from the instructions that they've given on the back is that what they want you to do is run a gather stitch around, encase the button in it, and then the back pops on. So first things first, I will start by cutting a circle the size that they have indicated here on the back. So I have cut myself my circle of fabric and my circle of interfacing, just like before, and I'm going to place the two together and treat them as one fabric. And then as per the instructions for this particular cover button, I'm going to run a gather stitch around the outside reasonably close to my cut edge. There's no reason why you couldn't do this on the sewing machine. I just think for the volume of stitching there is here, I find it easier to do this sort of thing by hand quickly. we'll just send this all the way around. The reason for this is that we're just trying to pull the fullness behind the button, so similar concept to before, whereas before they have spikes to be able to grip the fabric and hold it into place. This time we are using the gather to pull it behind in order to get rid of all of the excess behind the button. So pull my button in, and this drops nicely into the middle here, and then we pull the gather up. I've got 2 bits of thread through my needle to make this process a little bit easier. I'm going to run another stitch there just to really help draw it in. And again, I'm going to push some of these pleats from the front round to the back to help tuck it all in so that I get a nice finish. It's always worth taking the time to do this sort of fiddling with these sorts of things and really try and neaten it off as much as humanly possible. And then all that happens with this one is this pops over the top and pushes into place. Now this will push in easier if you haven't got too much excess. It's really important with these small buttons that you've cut your circle of fabric to the right size, because you haven't got very much room for all of that excess to sit behind here. With the larger buttons, obviously you've got quite a lot of space, so if it is slightly too big, you've got more space to cope with that. But there we have it, 2 cover buttons, and obviously in different sizes with 2 different techniques as to how to achieve the finish, but obviously both really simple to do and super effective. I find when you're doing projects and you're dealing with maybe an unusual set of fabrics, you're not worrying about things matching, you're not worrying about finding a button that's the same shade of orange, for example, because it just looks really smart on there. And if you're wanting to create a pop of colour or a little bit of interest on something a bit more plain, I just find them really interesting. And as I say, some people will embroider a design onto the circle of fabric first so that sits on there, and you can create some really lovely effects. So the next time you've got a project that needs buttons, consider using a cover button. They really do just add a little something extra to your project.